Good morning, everyone, and top of the morning to you. We're coming to you live from the Wear Parts studio, and today we want to talk about Kinze replacement parts for the Kinze planter row unit. Eric, tell us a little bit about what we have here on our blades.
Well, let's start out with one of the more original type blades. This will be the single row bearing. So here we're starting out paired with a Neo 200 blade.
Tell us about that Neo 200 blade.
On the Neo 200 blade, the thing that sets it apart from other blades are the 3 zones of heat treat. So on the inside, you have a relatively soft center, so that runs about 48 to 50 Rockwell C scale, and that gives you additional flexibility in the middle.
That's pretty typical with what the other brands, the competing brands out there, is that 48 to 52.
Right, for the full blade, but we're just starting out with that hardness in the middle.
Gotcha.
So that gives you some flexibility there, prevents breakouts. And then we move out to this center section, and we're going to step up the hardness there to about 50 to 55 Rockwell C. So that's going to give you the additional strength, keep that blade running straight, and really strong going through the field.
Makes sense.
Then as we get out to the very outer edge, this zone here, we're going to step up the hardness even more, up to 55 to 58 Rockwell C. That gives you a very hard edge that's going to be last a long time, stay sharper longer, and really make that blade last a long, long time.
That's good. So tell us a little bit about, I think the most important thing about the wear part seat openers is the assembly process. Tell us about that. How does that work, and what else does it bring to the farmer?
We assemble all of our blades at our plant in Gothenburg, Nebraska, and each one that we do all the rivets at once, and then we laser test on a laser measuring machine how much run out and how much wobble we have
On every single blade?
Every single blade that goes through the plant. If it doesn't pass our exacting standards, it's not going out the door. It's going to stay right in our plant. We're going to take it apart. If it's an issue with the assembly, we'll do it again. If it's an issue with the blade, we're going to send that sucker right back to the manufacturer.
Gotcha. So it's guaranteed true, isn't it? We can stand behind them. As far as the tolerances go, the wobble, we hold everything to 50 thousandths and down, and on the lope, which is the vertical axis, we hold everything to 60 thousandths and down. So everything shipping out is below those two parameters. So the farmer can have a peace of mind when he goes to install these on his planter. The shimming up time, he's going to save time on the shimming up. He doesn't have to return half of his blades back to the dealer because they're out of spec. He's going to get a truer true V trench, a truer seed trench. It's gonna not compact those sidewalls. He's gonna have better seed to soil contact, no holes in the trench. All these things are important when you get a seed opener that runs true. Sorry.
That's okay. Like I said, this is the original single row bearing. The newer Kinze planters are coming out with a double row bearing. So you can see that it's a little bit wider there, so it has 2 rows of bearings in there. On ours, we have a nice heavy housing, 5/16 thick, and then we do the 5/16 rivets also.
So that's 2 things that are heavier about our housing subassembly than what's coming OEM on this blade is we're running 5/16 rivets over against 1/4 inch on OEM, and the thickness of our housing is 5/16 of an inch, whereas on OEM it's between 3/16 and 1/4. So those are 2 advantages. But
absolutely.
Tell us about the machined part of that housing.
Right, when we these housings, when we get them in, we actually machine them on the inside where it makes contact with the race of that bearing to make sure that we have consistent contact and that we have a true perpendicular shaft through there, so that when you put that bearing in, it's not going to have a chance to rock back and forth. It's going to slide right in, it's going to stay right there, have contact, the same amount of contact and clearance all the way around. And we also machine on the back side of the housing itself to make sure that it sits nice and flush up against that blade, so that you don't have any chance of it being cocked at an angle or having high or low spots.
That's good. So not everybody, I would say very few folks machine that bore of the housing like we do. What that does is it keeps it to where it runs truer, because you've got the backside of the flange machined and then the bore is machined. So your X and Y are perfect machined, CNC machined. Some of the other blade manufacturers is that bore is not machined at all. So it only has a little bit of contact in the whole depth of that bearing.
Right.
Say that bearing's an inch and a quarter or whatever. There's only contact like in the middle, and so it makes it to where in heavier applications that bearing can start getting loose and wobble.
So if you were to take a section out of this bearing and compare ours to some of the other OEMs, you'll be able to notice that theirs is almost an A-frame, almost an A shape, because those sidewalls are not running parallel, where ours is going to be running parallel. So you have that exact same clearance all the way around.
From the bottom of the bearing to the top of the bearing. Good. Tell us about that big bad boy.
All right, here we got this would be an upgrade for the double row bearing. This is a even thicker housing. This is our HD blade, our HD housing, still paired with the high quality Neo 200 blade, but we have an even thicker housing, stiffer, using the heavy rivets again. But this is going to be an even more solid housing to keep that blade running true, prevent it from bending even more.
And that bearing there on that HD is actually it's a 205 bearing. So it's got 2 rows of 5/16 ball bearings, whereas what's coming OEM on the Kinze row unit would be the bearing would be more similar to our MD, which is 2 rows of 1/4 inch. So it's a 204 series on the OEM. And so that's just if you need it in an extreme application. There's some places up in South Dakota and down in Kansas, some of those no-till areas are just very extreme, and you need a blade that holds up to it. I think that's what we found is these planters just keep getting bigger, people are going faster, and it brings out the weak spots. And one of the weak spots that we've seen has been in the blade. So we've been working for over 10 years to develop different answers to that, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job on that. I think. What do you think, Eric?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's definitely we're in the business of providing solutions, and this is one that we're definitely on the right end of.
On the leading edge of it.
Absolutely.
No pun intended. So that's the blades for the Kinze row unit. Now let's talk about the gauge wheels and the gauge wheel tires.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about the manufacture of these products, Eric.
Well, our gauge wheels come from Otico, which is a European manufacturer that's been around for 30 years. They have their own proprietary blend of rubber that they're very proud of. It's a very long-lasting rubber, but still has some flexibility to it. You can see here, I can actually push in on this. There are actually 2 hollow channels through this particular 4-inch gauge wheel. So as 4.5 inch, pardon me. But there are 2 channels through this that have that flexibility. So as that is going through the field and flexing, it's going to be able to shed that dirt instead of having a scraper on there or anything like that. It'll, as that flexes back and forth, that dirt and mud that sticks to it is going to be popped right back off.
That's good. So there's 3 things about the Otico gauge wheel tires that bring value to the farmer. And one is, like you said, that flexibility, so it's shedding mud, and then the wearability,
right?
The unique rubber compound. It's proprietary to Otico. They've got some of the best rubber engineers combined with very experienced agronomists on developing this product line. Actually, I toured that factory. It was actually before COVID, and that factory is top notch, immaculate, clean. We saw the extrusion lines and the ovens, and I was very impressed with the quality of the plant and the quality of the material, and the seam on these tires, you can't find it, and also the seam is as flexible as the rest of the tire. There's other brands where they bring that tire around and it gets vulcanized, and there's a patch there where that seam is actually harder than the remaining part of the tire on other brands. So basically it lopes as it goes down through the field.
Right. Another nice thing about the Otico tires is the consistency of that wear edge on them. That edge is going to be the same thickness, going to be the same width all the way around, making sure they don't have high and low spots or thin spots where it's going to wear out prematurely, start allowing the dirt to get down inside of there.
That's good. We've actually had customers take the Otico gauge wheels and test the run out on them, test the wobble and test the lope, and they hands down test out better than the major brands that are out there in the marketplace. So that's a tire. That's a 4.5 inch by 16 tire,
right,
replacement tire for your Kinze row unit. This here is a complete wheel. It's a 3 inch 3 by 16 spoke gauge wheel. And again, this is another premium product from Otico. This is a cast spoke. One thing I just want to point out about this spoke, if you look closely, the spoke is coming down and resting on this rim. So the weight transfer, as this thing's going through the field, the weight transfer comes from the rim to the spoke center through here, and it's not relying on your bolts to carry that weight like the other brands are. It's actually transferring through on the steel. The bolts are just there to hold the wheel together. So that's a plus. Another one is, if you see this snap ring here, if this bearing goes out, you can pull that snap ring out, press that bearing out, put a new bearing in, throw the snap ring back in, and you're good to go. That being said, we do spec out in these gauge wheel assemblies the best bearings that are made in the world.
Now you can see here, this is the three spoke. We also have it in the solid for applications where you don't tend to have as much mud that you need to allow to pass through the wheel. Excellent tire, excellent wheel. We also have that in the solid. This happens to be a 4.5 inch solid. Again, using the same high quality bearing, high quality tire. So we just have a solid face on that, backed up by the steel wheel.
That's good. That's great. So on your Kinze row unit, you can run, I think you can even run 2.5s if you run a twin row system. So you've got 2.5, 3, and 4.5, both in solid and spoke, and the replacement tires. So several options for your both your seat openers and your gauge wheels for your Kinze row unit.
Another nice thing about the wear parts offering on the Otico tires is that Kinze actually uses the Otico tires on their new row units that are coming out. So that's a very good endorsement for Otico, and we're very happy to be able to replace those Kinze parts with the same ones that came on it.
That's good. Actually, I was talking to the purchasing manager for Kinze the other day, and he said, you know, we used to run Carlisle on everything, and we got to talking to Otico, and we developed some products with him. We started running their gauge wheels on our row units, and he said the warranty claims, the people that are trying to claim a warranty, he said they just dropped to almost nothing when they made the switch from Carlisle to Otico. So again, we tried to partner with the best, most premium brands in the world, because what we focus on here at Wear Parts is longer wear life, reduced downtime, and lower cost per acre. So it's a win-win for the farmer and for our customer, the dealer. Less hassle, less returns. We get on these seat openers, just one thing to bear in mind, they're guaranteed true. we stand behind them. So any questions, any comments, please feel free to give us a call at 888-4-BLADES. Thank you and good morning.